Okay, I think we're good to go. Yeah, it's 11 o'clock. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming this morning and for picking this talk to come to. It's a bit niche, but I appreciate you being here. And hopefully LGBTSEX is what you're here for. If not, run for the door. There's two exits at the back there. Escape while you can. So my name is Daniel Brown, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'm a hypnotherapist, a counsellor, psychotherapist and coach based in England. I've been in private practice for 16 years now, and my primary client base is LGBTQ plus clients. And then the other side of my business is travelling around to anywhere that will have me, basically, to talk all the LGBTQ stuff and help hypnotists and therapists to work with that client group as well. So, what we're going to be talking about today is LGBTSEX, obviously, but what is actually involved in that? So, we're going to look at diverse relationship structures and some of the sexual cultures within the LGBTQ plus world. We're going to look at themes of consent. We're going to look at boundaries as well. We're going to touch on shame and kink and working with all of that in an affirming way. So you're going to have a bit more of an understanding of ethical and inclusive approaches to working hypnotically with LGBTQ plus clients. And you're going to have some tools to support yourself as well. So don't worry too much about taking notes. There's a couple of handouts that everybody is going to get at the end as you're leaving. So don't worry about, scribbling furiously. Also, participation is encouraged. There's going to be some questions that I'm going to put to you. Some, answer in the session. Some, it's kind of take that question away and reflect on it. And I'm going to also do a bit of a relaxation exercise with you a bit later on for those who want to participate in it. So, I've got my notes to hand to kind of keep me on track. I feel like this could be a 1 to 3 day class maybe. So I'm going to try and condense as much as I can into the next 45 minutes or so. So before I get on to the content, I've got a question for you, or a couple of questions. So first of all, what message or messages did you get when growing up about LGBTQ plus sex and relationships? And what would you have liked to have heard instead? Are there any views on that? Any thoughts? Any reflections? Or you're all too scared? Yeah.
I grew up and was born about a mile away in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very open-minded family.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that there was anything that I wish I had learned. I'm actually really glad that I was exposed to being open like that.
Yeah. Quite positive for you.
Las Vegas is weird, at least there's that.
Yeah. Is there anyone who had a different experience? If you're happy to share, yes.
It's probably never a topic.
Mm-hmm.
Not even the whole gay idea. So
Yeah.
It was more of a self-discovery of being different. What
Mm-hmm.
does that mean? And now, I guess not until I moved to California from the Midwest here in the States
Mm-hmm.
that I gave myself permission to explore.
Yeah.
And even then, there's a lot of shame because of religion and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And in my own subculture, being Chinese as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So there's different layers to it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's the experience of a lot of people, and we're going to touch actually on the kind of silence, these things are not being spoken about, but also cultural and religious shame and how that plays a part in kind of people's upbringing, but also, as people carry that forward into adulthood and how it shapes their own self-acceptance and their self-belief as well. Yeah. Yes?
I was raised Mennonite, and it's even not talked about a lot, but if it does come up, it is satanic.
Yeah, right.
So you are not necessarily possessed,
Mm-hmm.
but you are under satanic influences, and wherever those come from. So obviously I would have preferred. Actually, it kind of worked because I very much rebelled, so it worked in my favor. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So kind of a positive spin on it in your case, but of course for other people that could have been deeply traumatic and carried through their life. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or you completely have to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people that did
Yeah.
for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's have a little look at queer relationships and sexual cultures. And what I should have done at the start, actually, is put a kind of content warning out there for some of the things I'm going to be speaking about, sex, relationship. I'm going to get pretty specific about some kinks. If it's too much for you and you need to step out, do so. If you need to talk it through, talk to me at the end. Come and find me on my stand or grab me at some point if you want to talk privately, okay? So not all LGBTQ plus people want monogamy, and actually open relationships and polyamory seem to be pretty common, pretty prevalent in LGBTQ plus relationships. And I would say it's more of an accepted thing. From my experience, it seems to be a bit more taboo or a bit more kind of under the radar for heterosexual people. So, for example, a client I have worked with probably a couple of years ago was in a relationship with at least 10 other people. They weren't even entirely sure themselves how many people were in that relationship. But each of those 10 plus people were also in relationships with many other people. So that was kind of very, very complicated, very complex, and came with a lot of issues. With this person in particular around trust, around some partners showing more of an interest in some and not him, and so on, which is a kind of a lot to work through. And kind of disclosing something about myself, my own relationship is open. I'm married, I've got a husband, love him very much. We have a fantastic relationship and we're very much a team. But as time goes on, he's much older than me. We're just not as compatible sexually as we were. So we made a decision to kind of open things up, and that's all kind of cool. Now, something else you might encounter is hookup culture, which is prevalent in LGBTQ plus communities. So you've got apps like Grindr. I just spoke about that in my talk yesterday and kind of described that as an online metal detector for cock, if you're not too sure what that is, but it's an app that you have on your phone if you want to hook up with guys. Then there's things like saunas, gay saunas, dark rooms, which are all legitimate forms of connection and of self-expression as well. But within that, it's important, I think, to note people who perhaps feel invisible or fetishized in some way. And I know that a lot of trans people and non-binary people experience that, particularly on the hookup apps. So I've seen trans people be fetishized. You've got guys on there saying, I really want to go with a trans woman, or they might put it in a more offensive way. Almost like it's something to tick off, a box to tick. I'm going to go with this trans person. It's like a fetish for me. But I've also worked with trans people who feel invisible. They don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, and they don't feel accepted and loved for who they are. They're seen as, thank you, they're seen as, objects almost. But then that extends to people of colour as well. For example, the view that all black men have big dicks. Maybe some do, maybe some don't. Whatever, size does not matter for all the size queens out there. And as a mixed race person myself, you wouldn't think it because I'm mostly red when I come to Vegas. But I'm mixed race, my mum is black. That's the kind of Jamaican side of my family. But I've also had fetishization myself. People saying, which part of you is Jamaican? Or, oh, if you're mixed, does that mean you've got a massive dick? And I kind of think, really? That there's more to a person than that. So there's those kind of things that people of colour and, as I mentioned, trans communities have got to put up with, when actually most people want to be seen as just the person that they are. So queer sex is really diverse, and there's no right or wrong way to connect. It's all done in different kinds of ways, and I think it's important to be informed on that and learn as much as you can on it, so that you can then understand and support the clients that you're working with. But I have a little task for you now, and I'd like you to just spend 10 seconds or so thinking about the following question. And the question is, what assumptions have you made about LGBTQ plus people and relationships in your work or in your life? So what assumptions have you made about queer relationships, queer sex, in your work and in your life? So have a think about that. Maybe write some thoughts if you wish, or continue to reflect after the session. But is there anyone who is comfortable sharing now, in the moment? Any assumptions that you've made? Yeah.
Assumption I had for so long is that in a couple relationship, they're equals and equal interests. But what I found in truth is one may be kinkier than the other, or one may be more vanilla than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And with hypnosis as a kink in the gay community, anytime I'm working with them, I say, "Would you like to get your partner in on this too?" "Oh no, he doesn't do it at all. Doesn't hardly even knows about it, but he lets me do it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not equal.
Mm-hmm.
Equality is rare. And usually they're really isolated from the internet or urban society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a good example you've given, Matt, of people who have different interests within a relationship. And you'll probably find that it's quite common, actually, for you to use your example, someone who's more kinky than the other person in a relationship. So they have an agreement that one can go off and do what they do and enjoy it and whatever. And the other, you know, they don't want to get down like that, and that's cool. But they've still got that bond, they've still got that positive relationship together.
Yeah, the stories we read about the very dom and very sub, more fiction than reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think common assumptions that people have made in my experience, and this is normally heterosexual people who are maybe a little bit ignorant, but in gay relationships, there's always a man and a woman in a relationship. Clearly it is two men. There's not a man and a woman in that relationship. I know it's quite common, the myth that in lesbian relationships, there's always a butch one and always a femme one. Yes, that might be the case in some cases, you know, but actually not all lesbian couples are like that, as I'm sure you know. So I want to touch on consent, boundaries, and kink and communication now. Consent is so important, as I'm sure you're aware, but it's also something that is ongoing, and it can be given and it can be revoked at any time. And also, just because someone is given consent to something on one occasion, it doesn't mean that that consent is automatic on every other occasion when that thing is happening or when they're hooking up with that particular person. So communication and listening is really important in that respect. So there are certainly things that I have done that I've consented to and enjoyed at the time, but actually probably would not consent to again, you know? So it's not necessarily fixed. So setting boundaries is really important. And people often negotiate boundaries with people as well, and I think that is healthy. It's really healthy. I think it's sexy to talk about consent and to talk about boundaries and to have those real honest discussions so that everyone knows where they stand. So some common kinks and some fetishes that you may encounter. These are things that, in my experience with the clients that I've worked with and just in the community generally that I'm part of, these are the kind of main kinks and fetishes that you may encounter. So first of all, pup play is pretty common. So that is role play, when people may dress as pups or a dog. Some human pups have handlers or owners. Sometimes sexual activity is involved, sometimes it is not. Back at home, I organise our local Pride Festival, and we have a pup play area as part of that, and it's a tent with a play mat. Nothing sexual involved, but people bring along their human pups and pet them and whatever in that space. I'm going to get a bit more explicit now, just putting a warning out there. Water sports. sex involving P. Fisting, you can probably guess what that involves when one or more hand is inserted into the rectum. And power play as well. So scenarios such as daddy, son, teacher, student, doctor, patient, even therapist and client, So power play, but it's all consensual. It's not someone behaving inappropriately to have that control and power over somebody. So you may encounter kinks and fetishes that shock you, that surprise you. But I think it's important, first of all, not to show your shock or surprise or show any judgment that you may be making. And my advice is always, if somebody wants to talk about something or work with something that you just don't understand or you are not on board with, then it's probably best to refer that client on than try and wing it, because those who do therapeutic work in the room will probably know that clients pick up on stuff. They pick up on body language, the tone of your voice. They'll know if you're reacting with kind of shock or judgment or surprise. So, for example, a client that I saw told me that he had a kink for having sex with amputees. He put it in a very much more explicit way than that. And that was a new one for me. But it was vital for rapport, but also the client's safety in therapy, that I didn't show any kind of shock and surprise. And I'm generally someone who doesn't. I'm pretty like, whatever, nothing's gonna faze me. But it's so important that that client was in a safe environment and could talk about that thing that he couldn't share anywhere else, because there was a lot of shame attached to that kink that he had and the reasons why he had that kink. So if there's something that you find a bit much, or you think you're a bit judgy about, or just don't accept, do the right thing, refer the client on. But also it's an opportunity for you to do some inner work, to explore why you've got those feelings, why you're making a judgment, why it shocked you. So don't be afraid to do that work on yourself, even if it's uncomfortable to do so. You'll grow as a person, you'll grow as a hypnotist, as a therapist, as a result of doing that. So something I'd like you to think about at this point is a time when you have seen or experienced boundaries being respected or disrespected. So maybe it's something from your own life, maybe it's a friend or someone that you know, or maybe it's a client that you've seen. So just think for a moment about a time when you've seen or experienced boundaries being respected or disrespected, and how that shaped trust also. So again, write something down if you want to, or reflect beyond the session. And again, are there anyone who wants to share? Yeah.
Just blurt it out because I was thinking about it a few minutes ago. I have a client who's polyamorous and enjoys going to I don't think what it's called, but they enjoy going to clubs where there's sex rooms and things going on. And they were telling me about this person who was, in the description, this person just seems to be somebody you shouldn't be around in general, and how they were sitting around at tables just hanging out everybody's, and this person had gone under the table and essentially assaulted them. And they didn't understand that that is a boundary, that just because you're in a place where this is really, so that's a major boundary crossing. I was thinking about that for about 2 minutes before you asked this question, so work that one out.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And you're right, just because you're in those spaces, it doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all. You can touch whoever you want, do whatever you want. It all comes back to boundaries and consent and having those discussions, and remembering consent is a thing that is not fixed. It changes, you can give it, you can take it away at any point. So I want to go on and think and focus on shame and identity and self-acceptance now. Many LGBTQ plus clients that you see will probably carry some form of religious or cultural shame related to their identity, or internalized shame around their identity, their sex, and the things that they're interested in doing. So, for example, I've worked with clients who are Christian or who are Muslim, who have explained that homosexuality is completely unacceptable in their culture and in their religion. And therefore they have felt a lot of shame and a lot of guilt for being who they are and liking what they like. One client, I'll call him a client, one person that sticks out is the person I spoke about in my talk yesterday, who was a stalker and came to kill me, basically, as extreme as that sounds, in therapy. But at the root of his issue is that he was gay, he was Muslim, he'd been told by his parents that he would be sent back to Pakistan and be killed if he ever came out. So he carried all of that, but that manifested in internalized homophobia and shame that he took out on other people, and he actively wanted to harm people as a result of how he was feeling internally. So it can really kind of mess people up and may carry that through into adulthood, and then you've got all sorts to unpack there, if the person's willing to do that, of course. Sexual silence, that's also a thing, and it ties in with what you were saying at the starting about, it just wasn't spoke about, and you kind of had to find your way as you got older. And that's the case for a lot of LGBTQ plus people, and it was the case for me as well. I lived with my mum in the early part of my life and my dad as a teenager, and my mum never spoke about sex. She said that she bought me and my sister from a local supermarket. Pregnancy wasn't a thing, sex wasn't a thing. She was even angry when we had sex education at school. I came home with a leaflet and she ripped it up and threw it in the bin. We don't want that kind of thing here. My dad, he did speak about sex and he almost encouraged it, but it was about heterosexual sex. From the age of like 11, 12, he used to say to me, sex is good. If you're going to have sex, here are where you can find the condoms in my bedroom. Just use one. He told me that lesbians are hot. I know, right? Lesbians are hot, but to be gay is disgusting. We don't have that in our family. We don't talk about that. It's not a thing. I'll disown you if you are ever gay. But yeah, use condoms. Lesbians are hot. I have all sorts of thoughts about that. Main one is you dick. Shame can also cause confusion, body dysphoria or body dysmorphia, I should say, but also a disconnection from pleasure as well. If somebody is not feeling comfortable with who they are, they're not going to be able to enjoy pleasurable relationships or pleasurable sex, because they're dealing with what is going on in their mind and all this shit that they're carrying with them, Yeah.
One of my regular connections is divorced, straight man, 2 boys in college, and he's straight, yes, sure, but he keeps connecting with me and enjoying what I put into his mind.
Yeah, but he identifies as straight.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is a thing. I've come across a lot of guys, whether on hookup apps or in my therapy room, who identify as straight. They just have an itch to scratch. And they do what they do. It's kind of a release for them, but they very much identify as straight. Now, I used to think, really, but as I've got older, I've got kind of less judgy, Sexuality is a whole spectrum, and I think actually it could be quite possible for someone to identify as straight romantically, but sexually they just need to come on in, grab a seat, welcome. So they identify as straight romantically, but sexually, sex is something different, something separate, and like I say, that itch to scratch. So I don't know if you have a term here in the US, but when we talk about gay, bi men and sex in the UK, we say gay, bi and MSM, so men who have sex with men. is the acronym. We don't categorize them as gay or bi or anything else. Yeah. Okay. So a key message, I think, here is that shame thrives in silence. And I think as hypnotists, as therapists, we can really help to break that silence and give a space for LGBTQ plus clients to talk about their shame, talk about their sexuality, their gender, their identity, their kinks, whatever they're into, all this kind of stuff. We can give that safe space, and it's so important that we do in a very open and welcoming way. So what I'd like you to do now is indulge me for just a minute or two. If you consent to being involved, consent's important, right? But what I'd like you to do is to just make yourself comfortable on the chair. I'm going to guide you through some relaxation. And I guess just trust what I'm going to say, but remember that you are in a safe space. If you don't like anything that I say, you can just open your eyes. You can come out of it at any time, okay? You're safe and you're secure. But if you want to get involved in this exercise, make yourself comfortable, and then please close your eyes. That's right, just close your eyes and just start to focus your mind, or imagine yourself, imagine a version of yourself, or maybe of a client, if not yourself. But a person who feels safe, sexy, worthy, and free. Just allow yourself to relax there in the chair. Just breathe and focus. Imagine a version of yourself or a client who feels sexy, safe, worthy, and free. And just think about all of the positive emotions, the positive feelings, the positive experiences that that person is having or is going to have in their lives. Having let go of any hang-ups, any shame, any judgments. Just living freely in their truth. And I'm just going to let you think about that for a minute. And remember that you are safe and you are secure in this space. So just think about that for a moment. And I'm going to go quiet for just a minute while you sit with those thoughts. Okay, and when you're ready, just take a deep breath in and out, and then just open your eyes when you're ready to come back, remembering you're safe, you're secure in this space. Okay, and take a moment to come round if you need to. Everyone okay? Yeah, good. I think everyone's back. Is anyone happy to share with the room what you kind of came up with, you know, where your mind took you, whether it was yourself or someone else, and what that looked like and felt like for you? Yes?
I was dancing. Just
Uh-huh.
free,
Yeah.
completely, absolutely authentic with me.
Uh-huh. Brilliant. And were you dancing like no one's watching or dancing like everyone's watching?
I dance like nobody's watching and I'm wearing it.
Uh-huh. Brilliant, brilliant. That sounds freeing. You had your hand up, yes?
Oh, yeah, basically, it's somebody who I know who gets
Mhm.
She's a very spiritual person.
Yeah.
And everybody judges her a certain way, and then, you know,
Mhm.
you can deduce whatever you want in your mind, say in details.
Yeah.
But that person is very special. She doesn't realize it.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about her.
Yeah. Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I saw her divine self.
Uh-huh. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing.
That's the best thing to give you, man.
And I think you make an interesting point there. I think that so many LGBTQ plus people don't have a high enough opinion of themselves. And so many people in our communities are special, wonderful, fantastic people, and need to hear that more from everyone, but also need to realize that themselves, you know. A lot of people are kind of down on themselves for all of the reasons that we're speaking about today.
Not everybody is part of the community. Some
Sorry?
people are just allies. And
Yeah.
I've seen so much things that happen to people who are my friends.
Mhm.
And by the time I notice it, it's too late.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's the final thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to interrupt your show.
Thank you. And you make another good point there about allies, you know, and anyone can be an ally. It's typically applied to people who are not LGBTQ+, but there are allies within our communities as well. I'm a gay man, but I'm particularly an ally of trans people, but I'm an ally of everybody under the kind of rainbow umbrella, really. And it's so important that allies show up. And that you're not just simply an ally, that you are a visible and vocal ally as well, that you're checking in with your LGBTQ plus people, that you're speaking up about the crap that our communities are going through. I know there's a lot in the US at the moment. We're having it in the UK as well, and I think in a lot of places. So allies are so important. So thank you for bringing that up. So let's talk about hypnotherapy or hypnosis then, and ethical practice with LGBTQ plus clients. I'm going to give you some top tips now. Again, as I said at the start, don't worry about writing them down. There's a handout at the end that you're going to get with everything on there, basically. So don't worry too much. So, number 1 point, hypnosis should never be used to correct people or to treat their sexuality or their gender. We are not here for conversion therapy. I know it happens a lot in the US. It is still legal in the UK and happening in a lot of churches. We're here to... That is, I'm always reluctant to call it therapy, but it's essentially using counselling or hypnosis to cure people of being LGBTQ+. Yeah. It's currently legal in the UK, but we had a new government last year and they have put forward a proposal to bring in a law banning it. But I know that it happens a lot over here, but many countries are now banning it. Yeah.
So so are requests actually being made by people to correct their, or is there people wanting to do it?
It's welcome. Come and grab a seat if you're joining us. Do you know there are some LGBTQ plus people who are requesting conversion therapy? They want to be cured, and I've had people ask me to do that for them. And obviously, no. But let's explore why you want to go through that. You know, what's driving that. But mainly, it's done through coercion of people. It often happens in religious settings where people are coerced and forced to undergo it because who they are is not acceptable in that community. But it doesn't just happen in religious communities. But yeah, it's deeply traumatic for a lot of people. So, we're all about affirming identities, basically. People are able to bring their authentic whole selves to therapy, to hypnosis with you, and you accept them, you affirm them, even if you don't fully understand it, but you're there to listen and you're there to learn as well as work well with those clients. So we're going to focus on liberation rather than control, yeah? And freeing our clients to be who they are, do what they do, and like what they like. It's important to use client-led language, so mirroring the language of the person that you're working with. If you enter into their world, it will build rapport with them. They'll feel more trusting of you. So, for example, I've been using LGBTQ+ a lot, but some people might say queer, or they might say LGBTQIA, or some other acronym. So always mirror the language that the person you're working with is using and enter into their world. An example I have here is a client came to see me for a consultation for hypnotherapy, and I said, "How can I help you?" And their exact words were, "I can't stop looking at men's dicks." And my response was, "Do you want to look at men's dicks?" First of all, it was good to get that clarification on whether they wanted to do that, whether they didn't, what is going on behind all of that. But also it was about using the language that the client was using and getting onto his level straight away so that he felt able to open up and talk to me about all of the stuff that he had been through. He was not gay. He'd been through some stuff, but he felt able to work with me because I think straight away I got on his level. No judgment, no shame. What's the problem? Hey, let's sort this out, Something to be mindful of is unconscious shame. So that's clients not being consciously aware of their own shame, their shame that they're carrying with them. They might display it, they might talk about it, but they might not be able to name it or be aware that it's a harmful thought pattern that they're in. So you may have to do some extra work on helping people to understand their own shame that they're carrying with them before they can even begin to work through it. It's also good to be mindful of blocks to pleasure as well. So somebody might have experienced some kind of traumatic incident, and they might have dissociation and a trauma response because of all of that. And again, they might not necessarily understand what is going on in their mind and what's driving that. So again, you've got to work through all of that stuff before you kind of get them to where they want to be. But if you respond using gentle, affirming language, and again, mirror the language, then you're kind of on the right track with clients. Now, some key tools in hypnotic tools, hypnotic techniques that you can use. So first of all, anchoring. So anchor body confidence or body comfort. Anchor positive sexual experiences that people have had. You might want to use regression to reconnect with a sex-positive inner self, or a positive experience that they've had in their past to help them realise they can regain that. They can have positive experiences in the future. Future pacing is another good one. So future pacing to someone who is an empowered person, who feels confident in their body, confident and comfortable in their identity, their sex, what they're into, all of that kind of stuff. Ego strengthening is another really good tool in terms of holding boundaries and having those discussions and being able to say yes or to say no in a very confident and assured way. So therapy using hypnosis should always be about expanding consent rather than kind of control and reducing it. And it should be about freedom and accepting their identity as well, so always working from an affirming place. It's also absolutely vital that you don't impose your own beliefs, your own judgments, and your own baggage on clients. It's not about you, it's about them. And I think if you are feeling that your stuff is coming into it too much, then maybe refer that client on, or do you have supervision over here? So like we have to have supervision back in the UK, which is when we see another hypnotist or another counsellor once a month. We talk through our client cases, we talk through ethical stuff, and it's just a really good, it's a really good checking in process. So even if you don't have that kind of formal thing over here, maybe there's someone in your circle of hypnotists who you can have that checking in process with. It's really useful. So let your clients lead you, basically. Be guided by them, yeah? And don't bring your stuff into it. Listen. We've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. We've got to listen more. And it's all about, affirming your clients, as I said. So, that's kind of the end of what I was going to present to you. But I have one more question before I go to any questions from you. And that is, what's the number one thing that you think you're taking away from today's session? Is there anything that stands out as, I'm going to take that away and maybe think about that more, or maybe do something as a result of that? Are there any thoughts? Yeah.
Affirmative community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Affirmative community. Yeah. Okay.
I think that with the onset of what's been going on in the U.S., I had debated whether or not I made it really clear on my website that I'm an ally and safe with my practices. And I think that I'm just going to go
Mm-hmm.
get that done. Because if I don't say, somebody can call me and I'm happy to take them on. If I don't have it out there, people who need help don't
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm right here.
Yeah, exactly. How do they know otherwise? And it's so important that people have someone who is safe to go and see, and that they can be sure of that. So something visible on your website, your marketing, it does make a difference. Yeah. At the back there.
Yeah, I already told you the story of
Yes.
the unfortunate passing of something that I didn't notice until it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
And in the future, what I'm going to be doing, and what I took away from your presentation, is that I'm going to be referring that type of people to people like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's too late. And this society is cruel. It's super, I'm just going to say the word fucking cruel.
Yeah.
To a point where it's just, and what you're saying, it's almost barbaric what they're doing in some of those churches in some of those states.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing, I'm just going to slowly notice, because sometimes these people hide their own things
Mm-hmm.
until it's too late.
Yeah.
And as an ally, I have to say ally all the time. But I used to say jokes all the time that probably were hurtful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
So
yeah.
I'm going to keep identifying people,
Mm-hmm.
looking to the right people, and doing my best as a group of hypnotherapists and to if you notice somebody, refer them to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Start as a journalist and send them to a specialist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for showing up as an ally and recognizing that maybe, in the past, jokes and whatever may not have been appropriate, but you've learned from it, you've evolved, you've grown, and that's such an important thing. Okay. Any questions for me? And what we've covered, or maybe something we haven't covered that you want to know about?
I'm always curious as to how we can let more people know that hypnotherapy is available to them in underserved communities.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is curious about being a hypnotherapist as well. She's trans and non-binary, whatever. My daughter is. And how might we set it up better for her
Mm-hmm.
or others who are younger
Mm-hmm.
to see this as a way for them to have that freedom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question is, thinking about young people who are trans, non-binary, or just generally LGBTQ+, how can we set things up so that they get the support they need or the information they need, or can be themselves? Is that kind of the gist of the question? Yeah. I think it all comes down to education, as so many things do, but also not being afraid to have these discussions, as parents or as family members or friends or as therapists or hypnotists, not shying away from those discussions and giving that space for people to explore who they are, basically. I think younger generations have probably got it easier than a lot of us who are a bit older. Young people are generally accepting it more, I think. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't kind of take our foot off the gas in terms of the work that we do to make the world a better place.
They're still seeing a lot of mental health issues because of the
Mm.
So that's, I mean, I feel like there's an emergence
Yeah.
in that, and that more of us should actually vocally say,
Mm-hmm.
you're afraid, you're scared,
Yeah.
seek help.
Yeah, and this is where you can get help.
This is where you can help.
Yeah, whether it's from a hypnotist in the area or a therapist, or whether it's some kind of online resource, that they can look at, but just giving that guidance, that signposting, so that people are just not totally kind of alone, and wondering, what the hell do I do? What do I do with this? Yeah. Any other questions for me? Okay, so I'm going to read my final thought out so I get this right. So I wanted to end with just saying that sex and identity are deeply personal and deeply powerful as well. And when we do this work with care and with curiosity, we help people heal from the shame that they're experiencing, and they can then step into joy and step into living in a very authentic way. So whether working with yourself or with others, go gently and go bravely, and thank you so much for attending.